Hi everyone, I'm Andrew, and last time we discovered that our e-bike's display was water damaged. Today I'll show you how I replaced some buttons and sealed it with epoxy and make it as good as new. Watch as we go from this damaged state to a fully functioning display, all without breaking the bank. In the first episode we took the cover off and we saw that our display was full of water, so I decided to replace the buttons because they were giving fake command and seal everything with epoxy. If you viewed it, you saw that we opened it with hot air and pliers. We need to repair the damaged pliers created because I want to fill all the holes with epoxy except the holes for the buttons and screws, and in order to do that we first need to apply a paper film which is perfectly closing the holes to prevent the epoxy solution from pouring everywhere. We will use two types of epoxy, a black one for the holes that have no use and a transparent one for the holes that have LEDs inside. We started with the black epoxy, so we marked the holes that need to remain clear, the holes for LEDs, for buttons and for screws. You can see how nice it's filling the holes perfectly, so the water will be blocked. This one has an automatic mixing system, but for the transparent one we need a can to equally dose part A with part B. I bought them both from AliExpress for different projects in different times. It usually takes pretty long until they are done, so I don't think we should calculate more than 2 or 3 euros for this repair. I paid 8 euro for half a kilo of crystal clear epoxy. That means 2 bottles with 250 grams each, which is a lot. As a comparison, the other one was 5 euros but only 50 milliliters. Now we are filling the LEDs holes, and after everything will rest we will apply another clear layer on the other side. Not only that it will be waterproof, but it will be a pretty nice effect. We leave the epoxy to rest for 24 hours and meanwhile we replace the faulty buttons. I found the screen in the electronics bin, but you really can find them on a lot of boards like washing units, old laptops and many other things with buttons. Those ones are a little shorter and not that firm, but the important thing is that they give command correctly, so we unsolder them and solder back on our small e-bike board. After making a last check on the buttons, we also apply a coat on the board itself. If somehow the water will get inside the screen again, it won't be any short circuit or any other damage, because epoxy resin is a perfect sealant with no electric conductivity, also used by the board manufacturers. This one also needs to rest for 24 hours, then we can start mounting it back together. We need to be careful to solder the wires in the same way that they were before. This is a piece of random label that I found. We will use it as a distancer because the buttons that we mounted are shorter than the original. I printed some stickers with my girlfriend's YouTube channel, Maddie in the Kitchen. She makes really delicious stuff there, with my channel and with the use of the buttons. But unfortunately my printer is not that good, so we have to make some adjustment on the edges. But it's no problem, the plan is to cover everything in a clear coat anyway. But first, we need to take the label circles out of the tool and pair them 2 by 2, because one is not thick enough. The reason we need this thickness is that we will superglue 3 O-rings perfectly fitting on the button shape, so the surface will be a little higher, and when we will pour the clear coat, I hope that the resin will not go into the buttons. This is a clear acrylic film. It's a regular scotch tape used for closing cardboard boxes or so. It is not the best solution, but it's the cheapest one, considering that we have to rebuild this bike for under 100 euro and we still need a battery, or at least its contain. Applied on the top of the button and then closed on the cover, literally on the plastic of the cover, over the O-ring with a hot minus screwdriver so they can weld together. And now, the finishing touch, applying the clear coat with the same resin that we fill the LED's holes. When I first tested it, I noticed that some resin had seeped into the power button, preventing it from turning it on. It's not working. I had to press a bit harder with the screwdriver, which caused a slight damage on the clear coat, but eventually powered on. To improve it, I carefully removed the layer of the label that was covered in resin and added a red rubber button with super glue for a cleaner, more functional finish. Sealing the display was a fun challenge and a learning experience. It's amazing how a little bit of patience, some clever hacks and a few inexpensive materials can achieve. Now we have our display, which looks actually pretty good, excepting the little damage that we created here. And of course, we're gonna test it. Now that we have our display back in action, we are one step closer from getting our e-bike back on the road. But we are far from done. We got some exciting plans for the next episodes. Here's what's on agenda: reviving the motor, building a battery and many other custom stuff. So if you're curious how we tackle those challenges, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications and see you next time. And hey, if you have any suggestions, tips or questions about what we did today, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe even incorporate your ideas into future episodes.